Hello, Sham. How are you?
Yes, the oops is, I think people are going to figure out that you are actually not oopsing naturally. It's a planned oops. You just plan to be caught dancing on air. All right.
Well, they haven't seen it, have they?
No, they haven't. So, good evening, Ashok. How are you?
I am fine, Sham. How have you been this week?
Good. I'm in KL this week. As you probably would have guessed. Yeah, this background has not been on air for a while. But yeah, I'm in KL this week. And yeah, setting things up, speaking with clients here. So that's been quite interesting. It's been a while since we did that on, on this side of the causeway, so to speak. So yeah, we are in, oh gosh, I can't even remember what episode we are in. It's like 19, I think, of the year. And for season 3. And we've got an interesting guest for today's episode. But before that, I think, Ashok, you like to do the intro about the program and what we do and why we do it and things like that. So go for it.
Thank you very much, Sham. So all the fans who have logged in, thank you very much for logging into Leadership in Flow Asia Season 3. We've been doing this since 2022. And interestingly, it all started off with having conversations with leaders in Asia. We wanted to find out what ticks them, what do they do differently. And over the years, we found out things like they are very quiet, they're introspective, they're very self-aware, and they do things with a lot of impact. And then we started drilling them. We understood that they have very different view on personal growth, leadership growth, and business growth, right? And we've been unearthing a lot of interesting nuggets and I won't even say controversial, but very different way of thinking or how to approach life or leadership in that sense. So it has been very interesting and it's been fun. And today we have someone very interesting who you had a discovery. Is it through chai again?
No, filter coffee, please, sir. No chai.
Okay.
Yes. When you put chai and filter coffee in the same sentence, filter coffee will always win. Okay, please remember. All right. Yeah. So yeah, it was an intriguing, won't call it a breakthrough, but it's like, oh, okay, never saw that side kind of insight over breakfast. And it was a conversation with Si Ying that I thought that had quite an interesting angle, which helps us in that spectrum that you were talking about, right? That's this personal growth, that's this leadership growth, and ultimately what we're looking at is performance of business growth or business results, right? What I saw was a lady, a person who thinks about things from a slightly different angle, a bit risky, some of us might say, or maybe not, a little bit more out from what the norm would be in terms of how she looks at the choices that she's made for her life and her career. And I think there's things for us to unpack and to learn from, right? So I'm going to bring Si Ying up, and then we are going to have a conversation with her, and let's do that now. Let me put that into space. Okay, and demote myself and bring Si Ying up in her rightful position. Hi. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. And just to put some things into a bit of perspective, right? Just before we went on air, the conversation that we were having on behind the scene was about biryani and about walking the streets of Tamil Nadu and in India and asking and by asking how come it is that there are cows on the road in Tamil Nadu and there are no cows on the road in Kerala. Okay, but I'll leave that answer there. If anybody wants to know, you better just put it in chat, then we'll answer the question. But I'm just going to tell you, I just want to say, because it was so, it's like so different, right? The background conversation. Okay. So welcome. Thank you for saying yes to us, Si Ying.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Si Ying. I'm currently a client account manager with edX. So that's MAS licensed financial institution. We are a private exchange that specializes in private market investments as well as alternative assets.
Okay. Yep. And numbers is something that's seeing. I'm sure if you remember, she told us at the pre-meet, there's numbers is something that she found very interesting even at a very young age, right?
Yeah.
I have that in common, but for different reasons, and I'm not going to my reasons. But so let's get the ball rolling, so to speak. I'll start out with the first question, and I'm sure Atul will bring in his perspective. So, you talked about. I mean, I think it's quite clear that you are in a role. You're in a space of financial wealth and independence. But before we get into that space and how you got into the space, I think we'd like to go just a little bit behind to do a little bit of a rewind, and maybe it's an evolution, maybe it's not, whatever it is. What are values that you hold dearly, right? The values that have either shaped you or has in a way directed you in the choices that you've made, and these are the things that you say it's very critical for you, for me, in that sense.
Yeah. It's funny because I just happened to watch this podcast by Simon Sinek, Adam Grant, Brene Brown just yesterday. And in it, they were saying that, when's the last time you got angry? That time that you got angry, it will show you where your values lie. So for me, just over this weekend, so I was with my partner at a bus stop. We were going to go somewhere. So just for you guys to know, my partner is actually from India. And there was this drunk uncle at the bus stop that pointed at me and said, you're a disgrace, shameful. And okay, he's a Chinese uncle and of course clearly drunk. And I just remembered, in a rational, sane context, typically I would move out and don't bother, don't engage, not worth it. He's clearly out of his mind, drunk. But I think I was angry and I wasn't ready to back away. So I confronted it and I, asked him questions like, we are happily married, showing him my wedding ring and everything. So from that, looking back, I think the two values that I hold very closely is, first of all, openness, as well as growth. For openness, it, being told that, no, you're wrong or whatever, I just feel like I can't accept that.
So openness is to you, in a way, equity, or openness to wonder, to any possibility, which would be or would it be either one, or is it both?
I think it would be both. Just openness to the possibilities. Like, why does he think that there's only a certain way that things need to be done, or a certain expectation that he holds, and who is he to tell me that I'm not right? So that was something really jarring.
Yep. Okay. And why are they? Why is openness and growth so important to you?
Yeah. So for me, in my earlier years, I was actually struggling a lot with self-confidence, and I was actually really shy and introverted since young. My mom suspected I was autistic at some point in my childhood just because I wouldn't speak up. And I was going through school. I had friends, but still not the super outspoken one. And it reached a point in university. I was reading all these books, and I knew like I needed to break through, but I was scared. And from there, I actually was afraid to make eye contact even with my university batchmates. And so I joined Toastmasters Club to really, work on my weaknesses, and that was communicating. So from there I grew and learned that I needed to learn and
grow. Okay. And it's almost like the way you explain it, it's almost as if they both correlated, that you need to be open to possibilities, then you grow, or open in your example, open to failing, and then you see the growth.
Yes, and putting myself out there, and being uncomfortable, and that's where I really know that that's where growth happens, outside of your comfort zone.
Outside of the comfort. Okay, I'm just going to go a little bit deeper on this, and then I'm going to hand over to you, and I'll tell you why. Because one of the things, in the space that I work in, it's in conversations and communication, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we talk about, or we set in the stage when we work with leaders, is the idea that you need to be comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah.
So we talk about being prepared to be uncomfortable in the session, and obviously talking about creating a safe space and all of that. That's one. Number two, one of the after the program, what kind of interventions do you want to consider for yourself? One of the tips that we talk about is go to Toastmasters. It's a good place to practice, right?
Yes.
Right. So I am amazed. Okay, what did you do in your head, right? Or what did you tell yourself? Here you are, this person who you said, doesn't make eye contact, doesn't have many friends. You chose the friends that you wanted, very, very carefully. And you put yourself out there. It's like the other extreme, right? You jump over to the other side and go like, I'm jumping out of this place that I have, which is safe, and I'm putting myself in this most very, very unsafe place. And and you did what you had to do. How did you calibrate it in your head? What did you tell yourself?
I don't think it was more of what I was telling myself. It was more of what I was feeling. I think that pain, seeing where I was at that point and where I wanted to be. Someone that is able to just have a normal conversation, or be influential or have charisma. And I looked at that and I was like, okay, I need to do something. If I don't, I'm screwed, right? So what's the steps I need to take? So from there, okay, Toastmasters, it's one of the easiest options. You have a community, you have this weekly practices, you have this community of friends that you engage with, you learn from, a mentorship. So that's where I learned to come out of my shell. And from there, like I mentioned, I was really introverted. I started doing client. I started working in hospitality as well in university, and even then, it's funny. I remember the first day at work, I had a resting bitch face, a RBF, and my manager was like, "Hey, you need to smile. You need to be welcoming and like these are things that I didn't know. I had to be taught or reminded to do. But of course now, after many years, then it comes naturally comes with practice. So I would say the nature versus nurture part. I think the nurture part is something that I can control, and something you can work on to improve yourself.
Okay. What you've described to me is essentially what the motivation and your purpose was at that point in time. If you were clear about it, and you were, when one is clear about it and the motivation and that push was strong enough, we will put ourselves in that space of growth. We will put ourselves in that space of discomfort, because being in this space has become painful. Okay,
Yes.
Being in this space has become painful, and the discomfort is going to give me freedom. As counterintuitive as it is, the discomfort is the thing that's going to give me and buy me that freedom. That was a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Si Ying. Yeah, Ashok, over to you.
Thank you very much. Si Ying, I must say,
Hang on, I can't hear you, Ashok.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now there's a bit of crackling that's coming in from. I'm not sure whether. Okay, you carry on. It's gone.
I will carry on and just let me know how it's going. I was saying, being very open. The word "go," right? You can't hear me again, Sham?
Yeah, it's on and off. Si Ying, are you okay? Are you?
I heard open, and then I heard go, and then nothing
go
in
between.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me try and solve this. Sham, you throw a question in.
This is good. Now you're fine.
Okay, now I'm good.
Yes.
Okay, like I was saying, thank you very much again for being very authentic and very open about your sharing with the drunken uncle and your autism possibilities, where your mom threw that in, and your shyness, and I think you demonstrated it from the word "go," right? About your openness, and you've constantly showed in the last 10 minutes, how you want to move out of your discomfort, even on this show, right? And you're showing it pretty comfortably with a smile, and I don't think you have a RBF.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yes. Right. So I like what you just shared about being open, and I can see that how your feelings have helped you drive that choice, because you said there were frustrations. You were asking yourself, "This is the way I want to be still." This is my present state. What is my future state I like to be in? And you made that choice to move out of pain, to be able to be who you are, right? And what I want to find out is, how has your values shaped your choices, very specifically to career choice, and then we'll look at life choice. So the first part is, let's look at your career choice. How has your values shaped your career choice?
Yes. Very good question. Because for my past 5 years experience in the wealth management space, I've actually been working in startups. And as you know, startups, the culture is very fast-paced, it's very vibrant, but it's always all hands on deck. You need to do everything yourself. There's not much support or resources. Sometimes management would tell you, okay, we have $0 budget, but okay, come up with something. So that was something that the learning curve was really steep, but I really learned a lot and grew a lot in that short 5 years. 2 years in, I was also given responsibilities to manage and lead a team. So these are not, opportunities that you would see if you were in, say, in other types of organizations. So that part about being open and growing, I think that's very relevant to my career choices now looking back.
Okay, so what I can see here is again how your values is showing up, because for you it's about openness and growth. And the openness, like what you mentioned earlier, is not only about equity, it's about the possibilities, right? And a startup gives you those possibilities, to explore different imagination and in that way grow. Has there been frustrations?
Oh, yeah. Frustrations. sometimes you're given, like I mentioned, not much support, but they expect, management expect outcome, and then you are forced to be creative, and that may not work. You may fail. There will be mistakes for sure being made, but yeah, you fail, you feel frustrated, but then you pick yourself up and you continue to go. So I won't say I linger on the frustrations too much, because I know under that kind of culture, the more mistakes you make is actually better, because then you learn quickly along the way, and then you try to find a solution.
Okay, I hear that. I like the fact that you said that the more mistakes you make, you learn, and that I'm making an assumption here. You feel that way is because the culture allows that. Would that be a fair statement?
That's right. The culture allows that.
Okay.
So
for you to make mistakes, learn fast, and grow fast in that sense.
Yes.
But not
and I
repeat
think
the
that
mistakes.
Sorry?
Not repeat the same mistakes.
No, definitely not. You have to make better mistakes. Yeah. So I think that's the main thing.
I love that. Make better mistakes. I gotta write this down. Make better mistakes.
Definitely. And I think that relates to openness, right? Having that open culture to try something new, raise your ideas, and then see what happens, or not happen, and then just go with it.
So let me go back to this make better mistakes part. Okay.
Sure.
So how do you then learn, right? Through your mistakes, what are the steps that you take to reflect on this and then bounce back? Because I can see, because we said you're a bit of an introvert, so this is you're going into a bit of a crazy space in terms of imagination, and you got to communicate that. Then you make mistakes. How do you then find the courage to even converse about that? So how do you now learn and go through this whole journey of making better mistakes?
So I think first of all, I'm introspective. I will ask, what went wrong, and then I would, sort of process that, and then I will bring that up to someone else, someone I trust. Could be my manager, could be my teammate. It's like, okay, this happened. I should have done this instead. What do you think? Like, what were some of my blind spots, or what do you think are some of the blind spots going forward? So far, I think that's been the process. I mean, I haven't really thought about the process. It just comes naturally to me that, okay, I want the solution, or I want to make sure this doesn't happen again, because it shouldn't happen again, right? If you really, process it, internalize, and learn from it.
It's the Japanese call it the Kaizen, right? The process of Kaizen, where you do it, and the idea of better mistakes is that you do something. Sometimes you don't realize that another thing can crop up, but because you've improved on something else comes up. So I suppose that's a definition of better mistakes.
And I like the fact that you what you mentioned was you introspect. That's a very first step. That means you are really ready to be open to say, you know what, I don't know everything. I'm willing to learn, right? And I like the fact that you ask and bounce off ideas, again displaying the fact that you are open to learn and listen. And then you go on to even look at, okay, what could have been my blind spots, but your driving factor is solution focused. Let's find the solution.
Yes.
So I like that. No, thank you very much for sharing with us how we can make better mistakes.
I don't know. How do you guys make better mistakes?
That's a good question, right? But for me, when you said better mistakes, I went to Kaizens, because that in a way is, I think, a process that was put in my system for a while now. But it's very interesting though. In my case, it's kind of like in one space. Sometimes so you do something in one space, you not necessarily do it in another space. So what you are saying though is that it is part of your natural self, that when anything happens and it doesn't go the way you planned it, whether it's at work or somewhere else, you need to say, okay, what am I going to do differently in this sense, right? And do that. I think I'm a little bit more calculative with that. Good or bad, I'm calculative in terms of where it affects the business, but sometimes I may not do it so well in the personal life. So that's my take on it right now. Ashok, just before you go, I
Yes.
just wanted to say something, right? The thought about making more mistakes because you learn faster, and that is brilliant. That's a brilliant insight, and it's something that Adam Grant writes about in his new book called The Hidden Potential. And he talked about, and it almost when you were telling your story about not making eye contact and then putting yourself out there and making the eye into situations where you have to, that essentially is talking about the premise of his book, or he starts with stories around that, where when people are learning a language, one of the things that we do not do is practice and use the language. We learn it mentally, right?
Yeah.
We learn to write it, we learn how to say it, but it's in our heads, we don't say it out, right? And the minute the two key people that he was talking about in the case study, the minute they started talking it, their language ability just shot up, because they made mistakes and they were unashamedly making mistakes, right? They looked for opportunities to basically shame themselves, by really talking and then having people laugh at them. So yeah, you've got a nugget there, a book worth of nuggets. Okay, Ashok, over to you. Sorry.
Yeah. So going back to the values again. So thank you for sharing about how your values have shaped your career. And I can see the steps that you've taken to help you learn and make those mistakes and learn from better mistakes in that sense, But is there a difference between your career and your personal life choices? So has your values shaped that?
Yeah,
And
I
if
would
so,
say
how has that value shaped your career choices?
Life choices.
life
Life
choices.
choices, sorry, life choices. Career
Yeah.
done. Life choices.
I think someone somewhere said before, like the two most important decisions in your life is who you marry, and then number two is what you do for a living, right? So okay, we covered that part about what I do for a living. Next is who do you marry? So for me, having traveled across many different countries and actually worked in a few other countries as well, I see that, okay, yes, there are differences between people from different cultures, from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different family upbringing. But, we are also the same. We have the same dreams, same hopes, same worries, same fears. So given that, who I choose as my partner should not be dependent on external factors. It should really be based on aligned values and whether or not I can, live with this person happily for the rest of my life. Yeah. So that was my thinking when I was dating. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying for life choices, the two things that you look into is the person you marry and where you spend 10 hours of your work, of your life or your daily time in, right?
Yes.
At your work. So I
Yes.
understand that for a choice of your partner, you look for aligned values. Wonderful.
Yes.
What about work then?
For work,
I mean, you mentioned about you like the growth space, but what else do you look for?
I look for a good manager that I can grow a lot under. Yeah, definitely good manager. I mean, there's reports that says that number one reason that most people leave their jobs is because they don't get along with their manager or something related to their manager. So that is something that is really important to me, especially in your early stages of of your career where you really come with not much experience. So having someone to mentor or help you learn along the way or even sponsor you, I think that's very important.
Oh, nice, nice. So here again, I'm seeing you're so consistent, in how your values are showing up, not only in your career choices, but your life choices, how you lean back always to openness of equity and possibilities, and also the growth, right, to guide you all the time. So thank you very much for that. Sham.
Okay, I have to ask this question because she took all this different pathways, right? Um, so two things, and two things came. These two related things came out from your posts on LinkedIn. Okay, one was your choice of a life partner. All right, being from a different, well, not just a different country, but a different race, as you shared with us in your first example, your story with the uncle. That was one, and I went, "Ooh, interesting. Okay, this looks like a local Singaporean-born girl, Chinese girl, and she's made a very interesting decision to marry someone from India." Okay, and then there was this post that you had about your backpacking experience, and I nearly flipped with that one because it was like solo backpacking, okay, to get to some place for July the 4th celebration that took you somewhere, in some journey in the middle of US. And honestly, okay, this being a mother of a 19-year-old, if my son said that to me, I would have had a heart attack and not slept until he reached to whichever destination it was. But I mean, we can say it with hindsight because you're here now with us, and we know that everything happened safely. You are safe. But how has that? I think that happened first, and then other choices came along the way. Doing that, how has that shifted? Has it shifted the way you thought about it in terms of your life, in terms of openness and growth? Did it give a different dimension, or did it add something to what you already hold and value dearly? And yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So right after university, I applied for this J1 visa. So I was working in Yellowstone National Park, in the middle of the country, Midwest, in Wyoming specifically. I was waitressing at a restaurant, and on your off days, because I didn't have a car, I didn't even have a license back then. You would, hitchhike around the park. Given that most employees around the park, they would actually pick you up to. They might be going on a hike at a trail that's nearby or at the same trail, and then you just go along with them. So the rationale behind hitchhiking, it was more common for people who didn't have cars, for employees of the park to do so. Most of the time, people who pick you up could be tourists, mostly employees. But for the tourists, I would also argue that no evil person, no mass murderer would actually pay $80 a year to enter, to access a national park. In this case, that's my justification, I guess, or my reasoning for why I felt okay. I was hitchhiking in groups, and there were people picking up. And in that particular instance, I had to do a breakfast shift, and my roommate, who had a car, actually, drove 3 hours to her friend's place to celebrate the 4th of July Independence Day holiday. So for me, I could have stayed in the park, no problem. But you would just be with mostly non-Americans, and I felt like I traveled all the way here, and it's a public holiday, and I'm not spending it with my American friends, having like a more authentic holiday. That's a bit wasted. Like, when am I ever gonna have this opportunity again? So knowing that, and having interacted with the tourists in the national park, I had a sense that, actually this is a holiday that Americans really hold strongly to their heart. And given the kindness and, what I've seen and experienced so far in the 1 month plus time that I was there, I felt that there was a reasonable, high possibility that I could succeed in hitchhiking and getting to my destination without a car. The distance was around 240 kilometers. And I had the entire past noon. I had the entire day. I don't know how long it would take for me to get there, but I know I would get there. So that was the somewhat sane rationalizing of seemingly crazy story, crazy adventure.
Sure. I totally get you in terms of what you're looking at. It's the benefits, right? The benefit was, I'm here in America. I'm here at a time where you're celebrating one of the most important holidays, Independence Day, on the 4th of July. And yes, it is a big thing in America, right? I want to see how Americans, celebrate it. And I had the day off, right? So that's the very clear benefit. What you have described is how you considered the cost, and the risk. What's the risk at stake, and how you balanced off that risk in your head, given the filter of your experience being in that scenario, right? Being in that state, and you expanded that to a little bit more. Outside of the park, right? So yeah, that's a wonderful example of how you kind of put your experience, right? How you think about things in a rational way. You're looking at the risk and you're saying, okay, how much of this risk is it going to be the same? How much of it is going to be extrapolated? How much of it is going to be downplayed? How much can I take it and move 240 kilometers, not just around the park anymore, right? It's a beautiful example of doing that. I'm going to ask you the next question, which I think may be correlated, yeah. But before that, I just have to say this, okay? My association with Yellowstone Park is a cartoon called Yogi Bear and Boo Boo.
Yes.
Okay. So that's all I know about you. I know it's a park. I know that. But when you say Yellowstone, I think of Yogi Bear. And on that note, if you already do not know my age, you probably already kind of guessed it where I am, which century. Now, coming back to risk, right? And thinking about risk or thinking about cost benefit. You talked about how you moved from leading a team in a past role to now coming back to being an independent individual, not independent, but individual contributor, right, in a team. And it was a choice you consciously made, all right? The reason I'm asking this question is because it's a choice that not many people dare do, if I dare say that, right? Most people in our brains, our trajectory is independent, individual contributor, leader of people, manager of function, and so forth, right? You want to go up in that trajectory rather than backtrack. You backtracked, right? In a sense. Why?
Or
how do you think about it?
Yeah, maybe for some context, in my previous role, I was managing a team of around 20 people, and not just in Singapore. It was Singapore, Malaysia, as well as UAE. And in fact, when we opened a UAE office in Dubai, and this was during COVID, I had to train the team to learn everything from scratch, and I had to do it over Zoom calls throughout the training period. And these are people that are not Singaporeans, that we might not have the same like cultural background, and maybe that there were a lot of differences, right? And I've never seen them in real life. They've never met me, and suddenly one day, they just have to listen to me talk over a screen during really uncertain times, and learn from there. Okay, so given that was the scenario, for me, I learned a lot during that, when I was given responsibilities to be a manager, what it meant to lead, what it meant to take care of people and help them grow or help them find their ways or tap on their strengths. That was what I learned. For myself, I wanted to know, like as an independent contributor, how much more I can go. Of course, there are many different paths. For me, I wanted to go on that individual path again, because the management path was really tiring for the large part, and I was a bit drained from managing too many people, if I had to be honest. It's not easy to do it, and definitely not easy to do it over Zoom. So in my new role, I just have to focus on my day-to-day business and not have to manage anyone. Actually, it's a bit of a relief.
It's that deliberate going back one step in order to go ahead and progress, right? Right. Because if you were in that path may have kind of drained you even more, and maybe not left you with the best version of yourself. Would you consider going into that position again at some point? And how are you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I would consider it in the future. So I think it's a natural progression to want to have a team, to grow with people. But at this point in time, I feel like I want to grow myself even further first.
Okay. So a conscious decision to develop personal growth first before you can take on that role of a leader, right? Okay. What would be perhaps the one or two things that you would do differently, that you'll be ready to lead a team?
So for me, I was pretty young when I was managing the team. So now I would learn to delegate more and delegate better. So learning to let go of responsibilities. I think that's something that, from going from an individual contributor to becoming a manager, that's a process that everyone has to learn to do in order to be a good manager or a good leader. So in hindsight, I think if I were to let go of more, certain things that I've been doing for a much longer time, I would think that, okay, since I can do it in a much better way, so I should continue doing them. But instead of letting someone else new learn to do it, and maybe he or she would do it at a 80 or 90% standard. But is it good enough? If it is, then it's okay to let go, and then for you to work on other things. So thinking back, I think that's the thing that I would have been that would help the team be more productive in growing.
So it's also that idea of letting go, of dropping, and because you need to let go in order to be able to pick up another load that maybe is a bit more heavier, right? And in a manager's role, as you said, people leave. One of the big reasons people leave organizations is because of their leader or their manager, right? And so to be able to take on that role and become that leader that people stay with, right? As opposed to leaving. Very nice. So we've got a few things here. You've got how you think about risk in terms of the cost benefit and how you weigh it, and that applies to you shared with us in terms of how it applied to decisions you made from hitchhiking to taking a step back in the career instead of progressing, heads down, charge ahead, but take a step back and go into the individual contributor mode, build up your muscles, your particular strengths, and then go back onto that track again. I think I'm going to start by just moving in, and I'll let Ashok to lead to carry on with the space. It's the space that you are working in right now, and you shared with us is something that you're very passionate about. It is a space of risk because this is about financial well-being. It's about financial independence, but you're specifically looking at how women do that, right? And how women consider risk or avoid risk, okay? And one of the things that you were sharing with us is something I do, because when someone calls on the phone and says, I've got this package or whatever it is that they are talking about, I usually say, and that is for several reasons. One is I got just too many things to do. My husband does it well. Like, let's just go. You go and talk to my husband. You know, all right. I don't want to deal with this. Okay, that's one. Number two, he has a way of looking at numbers that's different from the way I look at numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, fine. You know, it's a division of labor. That's my reasoning. It also could be an excuse. I could also be setting up a hole for myself if something changes along the way in my marriage, for example, or in my career, right? In my business. So why should women be more not independent? Yeah, independent would be a word, but more involved, perhaps. Involved in making in about investments. What's your take on?
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. You know, I mean, I think I shared with you previously that a lot of women clients that I speak with, they do tend to, you know, tell me that, oh, wait for my husband to come back from his trip, or, you know, maybe this, you can call my husband instead. He's the one that does all this. And usually I would, you know, let them know that, oh, why don't you guys come down and sit together? I'll be happy to meet the both of you or have a chat with the both of you. Because, I mean, finances is important and involves both parties, and as well as the family unit. So there's been a lot of reports, you know, over the last couple of years or decade, that actually women are better investors than men. And the Warwick Business School report back in 2018, they share that, and the 2021 Fidelity report as well. And it comes down to two main things mostly. On average, men tend to have more speculative traits in their portfolio. So that's one of the reasons. And they also tend to do more buy and sell orders compared to women who have actually less trading activity, and they just buy and hold their investments. So on average, they actually outperform men by around 0.4%, 40 basis points. So why it's important, I think everyone knows why it's important, right? It's just like, are you conscious? Are you intentional about, you know, doing something different, or trying to be more proactive in you know, being involved, knowing about what's going on in financial wise? I think two things that have happened time and time again with the clients that I speak with would be, even for women who are in the financial services industry and their husbands are not, they would also, you know, tend to, not always, but there are cases that even though they are working in the industry themselves, they would actually still prefer their husband to take it over. And there could be many reasons. You know, women tend to have a lot more things on their plate. They have to what I say, mental load. They have to take care of the elderly parents or their children. So in terms of the mental load, it might not be very equal. So yeah, men might tend to have that mental space to come down and look at the numbers, look at the charts. That's one. And let me see. Another conversation I had with like a client would be, she's actually a doctor in a hospital. And of course, it doesn't come down to smarts or, you know, lack of logic or reason now, actually. It's just that she's not even open to having like a chat with me, or, you know, not even open to learning about what she's isn't aware of. So that's something that I feel, as long as we, you know, speak up more about it, know that, you know, create this awareness, I think things will get better. And it has shown that, you know, Gen Z millennials, they are, you know, more outspoken about, you know, money and finances, with especially with social media. So I think I see that as a good thing. So yeah.
Sure. You've been in this space.
No, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I did come across the Fidelity reports too. And I thought it was important to share that with more women, to see that, hey, you know what, they actually make better decisions in that sense, right? But do you think it's more of a knowledge issue, or do you think it's more of a fear concerns?
Risk.
From a risk point of view,
I think it's both. I think it goes hand in hand. For me, even when I started reading financial books when I was really, really young, just because my sister is a decade older than me and she works in the financial services industry. So I always had, personal finance books lying around that I'll pick up and read.
Sure.
It's just not as commonly, you don't hear women talk about money or investments as much.
Okay.
It's just, maybe not as, it's more taboo, perhaps.
Okay, so I mean, the situation that you painted was in an ideal situation where they are partners, husband and wife, right? But I'm sure you may have come across situations where women are single.
Yes.
Do you see a difference in their mindset when they
So
approach
then,
investments?
so then that would actually depend on their past experiences. For those who had, money issues, for example, or they had a certain financial goal they wanted to work towards, then in those cases, they would actually be more proactive. I've also had, single women just sort of not want to bother, because they just shut down, or like, oh, numbers, maybe not, maybe another day. So that concerns me, because I mean, Singapore is a really expensive city, so it's important to put up.
And I think from what I've also observed, I don't think this is only peculiar to women. I think there are men who are also who do not want to look into the numbers. There are some who would, but some who there are many also who do not want to. But that is slowly changing in that sense. So that's pretty positive or good.
Yeah.
So if you are going to be advising women, right? What are 3 steps they should take to become more confident about investments?
3 steps that they should.
Or maybe 5, I don't know, but I'm just throwing out 3 first.
3 is good. Just one is good. Just one is good. Just,
Okay, let's work with that then.
Yeah. So 3 steps that I would advise. Firstly, I would, speak with someone that you trust. You might not know everything, and that's normal. You're not supposed to. None of us knows everything. There's definitely something that we don't know. But just having that, I guess, safe space, someone that, okay, actually, I really don't know. I know it's important. We all know it's important, but I don't know. So, what can I do? So ideally, this trusted person, would be able to bring, share some things. And so I'm advising for you to find someone to advise you, basically. So that's one. 2, reading books. There's also a lot of, edutainment styles about personal finance, or a lot of blogs, or, the Woke Salaryman is also a really good one that I really enjoy reading. And, it gives you like this certain money mindset that maybe people don't talk about, but sometimes we do have, or you hear people talk about it. So that's also important. And then number three, I would say to start investing small amounts first, because you won't know until you start. Just even $100, right? And then you'll see like, okay, there's so many options these days, robo advisory platforms, with the banks, they have all this, certain blue chip stocks that you can invest with as low as a few $100. Just starting and then reading about it, getting yourself familiar with the terms. Yes, that money will, compound, but actually along the way, your knowledge also compounds, and that will, pay off dividends in the long run.
Oh, I like that. Your knowledge compounds and pays dividends. I like that one. So what I'm hearing is 3 things for your knowledge to compound and make dividends. Number 1 is speak to someone who you trust, who have got the experience. Keep educating yourself. And the most important one is take the small first step. Start investing.
Yes.
Right? And therein lies the biggest fear, if I may say. Right? So how can one person, right, do to overcome that fear? How can they minimize it or overcome it in that sense? What can they do? Or what have you done to overcome fears? Maybe we can learn from there also.
Yeah. So I think it was Daniel Kahneman that said that most people are not risk averse; they are loss averse, right? So okay, there are. I mean, if you right now everything is in a savings account, then there are capital guaranteed products also available. So that part, you can start off with that. It's a small step. And then from then you can read about, okay, what's the difference between a T-bill and a government bond, for example, and what's the difference between that? Why is that capital guaranteed compared to something that's not capital guaranteed? And that is, a way that there are ways. It's just, that's that fear. That's why having someone you trust that doesn't judge you for that fear, that helps you, I think that is the most important first step.
It's interesting. Your advice is almost similar to your backpacking experience. How you looked at the risk and said, okay, there won't be a Ted Bundy who'll pay $80 for as a mass killer, right? And so I looked at the downside of the risk, right? So you're looking at the downside, saying let's go into something safer first, right? And then you looked at the overall objective about why you're doing this, right? And then go out with the safe people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost similar.
Yeah.
Your backpacking experience to growth and compounding your rate of returns in that sense. Nice.
I didn't realize. Thanks for highlighting that. To me, it just makes sense in my own little world, but saying it out and then having you give that feedback, it's like, makes sense.
Yeah, because that comes up all the time.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that we, Ashok and I and Malar, find when we speak to leaders, right? There's consistency in why they do what they do across the different parts of their lives, right? And it's to sometimes like you said, sometimes they don't see it just like you did, not. And we are able to just kind of give you that bit. Sorry, Ashok, I interrupted you. Please carry on.
Go on. Karen, I'm listening. I'm waiting for you to.
So just two more questions actually. So to carry on from that, right, and how you're consistent in the way you're looking at risk, how you think about risk, how you mitigate it in your head, how you look at your surroundings for evidence, to say, okay, do I weigh it this way, that way? Does it go up? Does it go down? And then, okay, what am I going to do, right? What advice then would you give to someone when they are making choices, whatever those choices are in their lives? They all have different choices, right? For the choices that matter to them, from Si Ying's perspective, what would be the advice that you give, be it financial, or be it life, or be it career?
I think one advice that I would give is to trust your gut. I think growing up in Singapore, a lot of the times we make decisions based on our head, on logic, everything's up here. But there's actually a lot of like micro information data points that our instincts or intuitions capture that's not, cannot be explained or not yet able to be explained by logic and reasoning. So over the years, my early adulthood, I think I've learned to listen to that voice. If it's, that hitchhiking example, everyone thinks like you're crazy to do it alone. But if someone stops the car and he looks sketchy, it gives me a bad vibe. And I mean, of course, we ask a few questions first before I jump into his or her car. So I think that was a, part of, I could always get off anytime. And yeah, it's just part of the decision making to trust your gut and to know that I will be fine. And also, Charm reminded me, I was carrying bear spray in my bag. So if anyone dared to do anything, I mean, I had arson in my backpack, literally.
Yep. and that's part of it, right? It's part of that. It's not. So the assumption, if it's risky, it's like you don't have anything. I'm just going to go there. Nothing with plan B, plan C in the backpack, right?
Yeah.
So people assume that risk means that, but there is a continuum of risk and how much you can take, right? And you said very nicely, trust your gut, because your gut or your intuition, instinct, is a collection of all our experiences that we may not be we logically or we're not consciously connecting the dots, but our overall system has connected the dots, and it's fed into that system. And that if that little system is telling us not working, listen to it, and similarly otherwise as well, as you so rightly put. Okay, wonderful. You want to bring it home, Ashok, with the 1 minute question?
Okay, so very quickly, all right, Si Ying, this is your 1 minute question for you. I know you told us that you read a lot of books and you've got your favorite book. What is the one important lesson you took from your favorite book that you have applied to your life? So what is the one important lesson you took from your favorite book that you applied to your life?
Okay, so I would say it's Tina Fey's Bossy Pants. It's a fun read. She's a funny person, especially if you like Saturday Night Live, SNL, or 30 Rock. If you like that kind of humor, I would say go for it. One important lesson I learned is to be unapologetically yourself. So this was a book I read when I was 18. I remember I should have been studying for my A-levels, but I clearly didn't. I was just reading the book and trying to not read my textbook. It took me 10 years, to learn to be unapologetically myself. And it's, even till today, I'm still a work in progress. But yeah.
Okay.
Is that 1 minute?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
There we go. So thank you, Si Ying, for spending the hour with us, allowing us to drill into your history, your experience, your intuition, your gut, and how it all worked, and being unapologetically yourself and sharing a piece of you or your life with us. Thank you so much for doing that with us. Ashok,
thank you very much. Again, even in the choice of her book, it goes back to openness and growth.
Yes, exactly.
Of equity, possibilities, and growth. You're consistent all the way. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Such a joy talking to you this hour. I'm going to put you back in the backstage and then close the show. Yeah, just give me that. All right. So Ashok, there we go.
Fantastic.
1 hour,
yeah.
very quickly, very quickly.
And yet again, another fantastic leader.
Yep, exactly. And I think it's a good point for us to emphasize here that leadership is not just when you're leading a group of people, it's self-leadership as well. And one of my takeaways and one of the exciting things I wanted this show to come out and seeing helped us bring it out was the fact that sometimes you need to take a step back, right? And it is okay. It is very okay to do that because you want to see a better version of yourself. So we predicated this show in terms of personal growth that leads to leadership growth and then to the results of the performance that you want, right? And it's sort of, in our heads, we kind of think it's a linear thing kind of working in this direction. But sometimes you need to go back a little bit and then, and then forge ahead more faster. So
and seeing has showed us that the values are the guiding stars in that sense, for her to reflect, introspect, and ask herself, okay, what can I do better? How can I be better? Even her steps to go back and say, how can I even be a better individual contributor? Fantastic, isn't it?
Yep, it's brilliant. So unapologetically saying bye-bye right now because we do not want to take you away longer than necessary from dinner and time with the family. And we'll be back next week talking to another leader and unpacking what it is that they do intuitively, or consciously or unconsciously to help them with their personal growth, their leadership growth, and their business growth. Thank you so much for joining us. Ashok, See you next week, or maybe not.
See you next week, Sham.
Right. And thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.